Okay, welcome to the webinar on setting up your course. I'm Josh Weiss, and we have here Ann's with us. We're going to have some few people, I believe, joining us in a few minutes as well, but we'll get started. And yeah, I'd like to welcome you to our second webinar of the spring 2016 term. We'll be having about 4 of these. So if you'd like to check out other ones, check out inside of our Need Help Center. There is a tab called Workshops and Webinars. Check that out and you can get access to other ones as well. I want to go over real quick what our agenda is for today. So generally speaking, we're going to be talking about the goal of setting up your course, kind of what your endpoints are, and we're talking a little bit about the instructional design constraints. When you're setting up your course, it's really important to map out what the flow of information will be, which is kind of what instructional design is. So we'll touch on that a bit. As far as the features themselves, which is a big reason I think people check these, is to kind of get a walk through the features. We're going to look distinctly at the importing feature, where you actually carry over content from another course into your course. You can pick and choose what that is. Course access, meaning how do you activate it for student viewing. And announcements and discussion forums, which is a lot of times a really integral part to setting up your course, especially in that first week or even week 0. How can you set up some announcements and basic communication with students? At the end, if we have any time, we'll try and do some questions and answers as well as some next steps. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to kind of pause for a second. I'm going to try and get a few people and get to know the folks that are here. I believe Ann's here. And Ann, could you just tell us a little bit about what you teach maybe, and then kind of what you'd like to get out of this webinar?
I teach the color theory course at the BAC. And I've been using Moodle for a while, but I wanted to use this as a refresher course because I still find glitches in setting up the pages that I use. I'm not, or each week's thing. They changed how you size, or the Moodle system changed how you size photographs, and I'm wondering if there's a shortcut to that. Used to be able to just drag them, and now you have to go back and change numbers. And how to make it easier to place type around things, text around things.
Okay. So a little bit of formatting issues.
In general, maybe I've missed something in how to do various things, so this would be a good refresher, I thought.
Great. So I'll try. Right now,
I don't see the screen for the presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to go back into that as well.
Okay.
Let's go back into that screen share. Great. So it sounds like a little bit of what you're talking about is formatting issues, which is important, as well as some of the bulleted points and how to work through bullets and general text editor formatting, which is great. We can definitely incorporate that into the ideas for today. That certainly would work.
Great.
Great. So where I've gone right now, let me take a step back to kind of showing you kind of the workflow for going forward, as well as today what I'm going to be referring to are things in our Need Help Center. So anytime you log into Moodle, the top here you'll have these 3, the Home button, the Need Help, and the online resources. If you ever have questions about functionality or you need someone to consult with to kind of problem solve, you click on the Need Help here and you go down to Instructor Resources. This is really your central resource for answering those questions. The place that we're going to refer to most today is actually the Training Resources and Tutorials piece here, wherein lies the guidebook. There are 4 guidebooks, and one of them is setting up your course. So the structure of today's presentation is going to be based upon the information in here, and later on, if you want to come back and kind of revisit things that I'm navigating inside of, this is a great place to go. So I'm actually going to click on this to give you a view of what this guidebook is all about. We're not going to touch on all of these features. We only have about an hour today, but I do want to highlight the most salient ones, especially as you are starting your course. So the first thing I'd like to speak to you a little bit about is instructional design, just for a minute or two. So when you are mapping out what your course looks like, it really is important to understand what you're starting with and what your endpoint is. If you are starting in your course, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to log in here. You're going to find your courses down here. If you have a totally empty course, At the end of that course, you're going to want to look not exactly like this, but this is kind of the best practices that we've developed. This is a sample course that we've developed. And you'll notice some things I just want to point out as far as the goal for instructional design is to contain content to certain parts of the screen and to keep that consistent throughout the course. And what I mean by that is whenever students log in, they'll always notice that this is where the content is, and they'll always have something consistent in this window over here, which we can talk about a little later on. This is essentially the preview for the week for the students. The description of what they're going to learn, objectives, outcomes, and that kind of thing. It doesn't need to be as fleshed out as this. This has taken a significant amount of time and hours and resources to build out. But this is kind of the ultimate goal. Down here you'll see there's a few activities at the bottom here. And then these are modulated by week, right? So when students enter this week, they'll know that this is the description, objectives, and outcomes. And these are the pieces that they're actually going to be interacting with as well. A few pieces I'd like to mention as well, just as we get started, are what's over here on the side. Today we are going to talk about announcements. So announcements is one big piece you can use to try and build out communication with students. Whenever students enter a course, they will see this in the top right. Every course is already built into that kind of thing. If you have other needs for instructional tutorials, you can find those here. And course resources is a central place where students can find central ideas such as syllabi and coffeehouse, which is a discussion forum. We can talk about these later on, especially in our next webinar, which is going to be interactive features. This is more of an interactive feature, but I wanted to give a basic instructional design layout of why these things are there. So let's jump back into the actual features we're going to be looking at. The first feature we're going to be looking at is called importing. Importing is taking pieces of content you already developed from a previous course or somebody else has developed from a previous course, and just what it sounds like, you're actually importing them into your course. You can do this with 15 pieces of content. For example, if you want to import this piece, and this piece, I can actually carry these over into a new course. If I want to, I can pick and choose, for example, one from this week, and then these two from this week, and then this activity from this week. It's possible to carry those over as well. This is great if you have a piece of content that's been developed before, or you know of a piece of content somebody else has used and you'd like to actually use that in your course, or maybe take it as a bare bones kind of starter point and then you'd like to mold it from there. Let me show you what this looks like to actually import information. So let's pretend like this is our course right here, and I actually want to add a piece of information from a previous course into this week one. The first thing I'm going to do, and whenever I modify any content, the first thing I do is I click on Turn Editing On here at the top right-hand corner. Next, I'm going to actually, or excuse me, you know what, I take that back. You do not need to click on Turn Editing On. That's another way of doing it. Let me show you the simplest way to do it. If you enter your course, go down to the Administration tab on the right side here, and go down to Imports. You're going to click on Import, and a configuration screen is going to show up. Now here it's going to ask you, what is the course from which you want to actually pull the information, pull the activity from? So I'm going to say I'm going to pull my information from this course. I'm going to click that radio button, and if I want to find other courses, I can also type them in here. But my course is actually already shown up, so I'm okay. I'm going to click on Continue, and it's going to give me options here. What do you want to import? I only want to import an activity, so I'm actually going to untick these other ones. For most things that you're going to do, you're probably just going to have importing this as well. So that's a good best practice. If you're not sure what to do, this is a good default of just having this first one tick. I'm going to click on Next, and I'm actually going to select the activity itself I want to pull over. So within topic 3, I actually want to bring over structure reading number 1 and structure reading number 3 rather. I'm not going to pull over all of these. That's just too many things. So I'm going to click on None, which wipes these out. I'm going to click on topic 3 to open up the module. I'm going to click on 1 and 3, right? I wanted those two activities in that. And let's say I also want to pull in from topic 7, so I click there, the discussion over there, that activity as well. Okay? Those are the only things I'm going to pull in for now. If I want to, I can carry over other content. I'll do that at a later time if I need to. Let's just do this quick one right now. I go to the bottom and I click on Next. And what it does here is a confirmation screen. So it's asking me what do and don't you want to pull over, are you sure? X's signify not pulled over, and the checks signify this is what you want to pull over. So I'm going to say, yes, topic 3, 1, and 3, activities. And down here, topic 7, discussion, yes, I want those, and the rest have X's. It's exactly what I want. So I'm going to click Perform Import. And this is going to take probably about 30 seconds here, so we're going to wait for it to pull over the contents. And continue. And then now it's actually pulled in the content right away. So if we look down into the corresponding weeks, should see in here structure reading 3. So these are the corresponding, this is week 3 in our course here, just as in the other course it was week 3. And it's pulled in now these two, structure reading 1, structure reading 3. If we want to, at this point we can modify this content. The way we do that is by clicking on Turn Editing On, going down to the information down here, clicking on Edit, Edit Settings, and once we're in here, we can edit anything we want. For example, if we want to change the description, we want to change the file itself, we can switch out these files, we can do whatever we want. And once we're done with that, we click Save and Return to Course. And the content will be there. So that really is a quite quick run-through of what it looks like to import stuff. You can move stuff around if you like. For example, if you want this to actually be in this week up here, there's lots of ways to modify content. One of the ways is actually moving around the course. So I can actually drag it and drop it over here if I want to as well. And you can see kind of how this is a quite flexible tool as far as just bringing over raw content, modifying it, and moving it around. So you really don't have to recreate content over and over again. You can pick and choose on your own. So I'll pause there for a second. Let me check back in and see who's here and if there are any comments on the actual comment board there. And did you have any questions there? I know we hadn't talked about any formatting stuff specifically yet, but did you have any things to mention there?
I have not done that. I usually have the whole course brought over, and then I edit it as I go through and open just a week at a time. But
it's certainly one way to do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, this is probably better to do it this way, the way you suggested.
Yeah, it's much more empowering to the instructor, right? Because if you have content automatically pulled over, it might be what you want, but honestly, you might have said, you know what, that activity, I actually don't want to bring it over this time. And so in that way, it's a much more precise tool. So that's something to look forward to.
It is. Yeah. Terrific.
Great. I'm glad that was useful to you.
It was,
all right, so I'm going to go. Great. So let me go back into the screen share. Let me see what else we can dive into today. So let's go back to our quick agenda over here. And we had talked before about adding also some announcements. So let me show you what the announcement tool looks like, how you can use it once you're setting up your course. There's lots of ways you can use it throughout your course, obviously, but for the purposes of today, what will using the announcements in the beginning of the course look like? So we already have our editing has been turned on, right? So we've already clicked that before. And then over here in the announcements block, what you'll notice is there's a little gear, right? So everyone has this built into their course, and it is essentially an announcement board where students can, it's a one-way discussion board in essence. When a student goes in here and clicks on whatever announcement has been created, they'll see what the instructor has written down. The students cannot respond. It's not a two-way, it's a one-way discussion board because they can see what's going on here. And if instructors want, they can add various media to this as well. So it can be something as simple as please make sure to check the materials for this week. But you can also say, please check out this website and give a link in here. You can say, check out this image, and you can put a new image if you want students to see something at a moment's notice rather than having them navigate through all the content for the week. You can post an extra image or a link or something like that up here. It's not a two-way discussion board. I'll show you later on how to create a two-way discussion board where students can give feedback as well. The other thing that's quite important to know about this announcements block and what it makes it distinct from a discussion board is that any messages that you create here, you as the instructor, that same message will be sent to the student's email, whatever email they've connected to the BAC or the BAC email itself, depending upon how they set up their account. And this is especially useful if, for example, there is a snow day and you need to really get to students the information that, hey, your assignment is still due, even though we have a snow day, you need to do this online. That's the kind of thing you really want to send as directly as possible to their phone or to their email. And probably the best way we have right now for that is through the announcements feature. The way you create an announcement, very simply, is you go into here and you can edit previous announcements, or you can create your own as well. Let me show you the other, before I create an announcement. I think it's important to show you where this lives so you can understand how this is edited. So the announcements block will live in one of two places. It will live in this hidden activities block on the side here, so the students can't actually access it and edit it. It will also, if you scroll down to the very bottom of your course, that hidden activities block also exists down here, so you can access it here. If I click on the announcements right here, I can access actually adding a topic, right? So let me do that again, because I did that quite quickly. If you want to add an announcement, the best way to do that is to scroll to the very bottom of your course, find announcements there, click on the announcements item itself, and then click on add a new topic. So I'm going to say snow day update, and my message is going to be despite the snow day, your assignment is still due. Please submit by midnight on 23, right? So I have that message there. If I want to make an attachment, for example, those images or whatever, I can do that here. And then at the bottom, I can select Mail Now if I want students to get that in a mail message. And then I click Save. Okay, so this will be mailed out immediately to all forum subscribers. Your forum subscribers are the students in your class. So now it shows up in two places, right? It'll show up in their email, their BAC email, I should say. It'll also show up at the top of the course right here. So what the students will see effectively when they come back in is they will see the top item in the announcements at the exact time I've done this. It's time-stamped, snow day update. And if they click on it, they'll get this message here. If you as the instructor want to edit this, you can. Click on edit, change the information. Let's say you got that date wrong. Go down, save changes, and your post was updated. Now students in the course will see that updated information. Great, so now it says 124. So that's kind of what the announcements look like. At the beginning of the course, especially when you haven't met with students, it's maybe a good device to say, hey, I know we haven't met. Here's the pre-class readings, or here's where you can get some information about what you should be expecting from this class. Or probably if students are curious about syllabi and that kind of thing before the course, you can write an announcement saying, hey, welcome to the course. If you're curious, your syllabi is here, and direct them to that as well. So I'll pause there for a second. That's the basic functionality of the announcements feature. We can talk a little bit more about discussion boards in a second as well. And was that making sense to you? Anything that was a bit too fast for you? Or
that was good. I have not used announcement for a long time, so that was a really good refresher course.
Great. Yeah.
I just to send a notice now, I just log on to all the participants, then I send write up an email, and then I send the email. But this is better because it shows up in that first page of the Moodle for the course.
It does. It does. Yeah, it kind of does all the things at once. It shows up for them visually. It also sends them an automatic email with the content that you've written too. So it is a good piece to have. Great.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Awesome. So let me talk a little bit about discussion forums as well. That is something when you start out with your course, that's something to consider. The best practice is when you're getting started with a fully online course or a hybrid course or an on-site course is to at least, if you want students to be considering online learning as one of the, at least to check into the online learning once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, you really need to set that pacing, those standards and those expectations at the beginning of the course. And what I mean by that is if you want students to be participating in discussion boards, reading content online in week 3, week 4, week 5, you really should set that expectation in week 1, week 2, week 3. Otherwise, they're really not going to have the mental model to build around, and they're not going to consider it a course in which they really need to check into. It'll be a lot more work on your end to kind of build that habit for them, so to speak. So one best practice we found is when you're getting started with a course, even if it's a very online light course, right? Very little content is going to be online, but there will be some content online. do an introductory forum activity. And what that is, essentially the first few minutes of class where you say, hello, this is my name, this is my background, this is what I'm going to be looking forward to teaching you in this class. How about you? And most instructors will go around the classroom and students will introduce themselves in some fashion perhaps. You'll have some small activity where you get to know each other. Can you do that online as well? And what that looks like is through a discussion forum. Again, this builds the habit of students considering the online space as a space they need to check into, as a place they can consider one in which they will be contributing content, essentially. So the way to create that discussion forum is to click Turn Editing On inside of your course. And you're going to go down to Add an Activity or Resource. This is where any content that you generate, any of these things here, when I say content, these activities, you're going to click Add an Activity or Resource. And you're going to go to the forum over here, right? So click that radio button and click on Add. And this is the configuration screen. I'm going to call this Week 1, Getting to Know Each Other. And I'm going to write a brief description here. I'm going to write this real quick. We can go back and edit it later on if we want to as well. Each other forum. If I wanted to display this description on the course page, I tick here. I don't really need to do that right now. It's kind of self-explanatory in the title here, so I'll skip that. And then I will go down to the bottom, and let's just, for right now, for the sake of getting things done quickly, I'll go down to Save and Display. Great, so this is the activity that has been generated. And now in this, I can actually edit the expectations for the students, right? So I can go back into my edit settings if I want to. And I can change this. Let's say I want to actually put my description of my activity in here. I'm going to say, in this forum, you will get to know each other in a digital context. Please share your academic background, where you are from, what you expect to get out of this course, content-wise, and a piece of personal interest, such as a hobby or pastime. I believe it's a hyphen. Pastime is a hyphen. It does. Great. So that's the description here. I've gone back and edited that now. And let's go back to Save and Display and see what it looks like right now. Great. So when students enter this activity, we'll just get this description. Let's look at it from the full implementation side. When students come in to the course for the first week, they'll see all of this. See all of this great content. They'll also see down here is one of their activities that they have to complete inside of this time frame from April 24th to April 30th. Getting to know each other. They'll click on this, and they'll see our description up here. Another best practice, as you've probably seen in a live instructional format, is to kind of share yours first. So maybe one thing you can do is in your post to forum, you can say, put your name, and I am from Virginia. Oops. And have lived, talk about that. My professional background is, and I look forward to doing the following with you all content-wise in this course. Great. I can fill that in later if I want to. Maybe add a picture here. I don't know, something like that if you'd like. And save. Just to give you a preview of what it looks like now. Now the discussion item is my name. Students click on the actual discussion item. They'll see this. And they can even, if they want to, they can reply and say, nice to meet you. Oh, I've been there. Been to Virginia at one point. It's beautiful. All that piece of professional background intersects with mine. And you can kind of build a conversation over here as well. It's a great way to build students' habits as far as checking in online and considering online as a live space in which they'll have to consider content and build content inside of. So that's a great way to get students started in setting up your course as well. I'll pause there. And is there anything you'd like me to dig into? This might be a point at which we can dig into some formatting. I think that was something you wanted to talk more about.
Yeah, this we have a hybrid course, but occasionally, like last winter, there are snow days,
Right.
and it looks. I've not used it, but it looks like a good vehicle for that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So that students could now they can post sketches there.
Absolutely. If there's any content they've created, whether it's a PDF or a Word file or anything like that, they can load that into their forum submission as well. It'll just show up as an image below or a file link below. Yep.
Yeah, then the instructor can comment on that sketch or progress or whatever. That looks very good.
Yeah, let me show you what that would look like actually for a student or instructor to do so. So let's say I've already created my my content. I actually want to add an image to this. So I'm going to click on Add, or Edit rather.
Yeah.
And here at the bottom is where I add things. So for an instructor or student, it's as simple as clicking on this, going to Upload a File, choose File, and then just finding it on your computer here. So let's say I want to upload this over here, script, upload this file, and then here it appears, and I click Save Changes. Great. And when I come back in, this will be here as an attached file below. And anybody wants to check it out, I could say, hey, this is a script I've created for this course. Check it out below. Let me know what you think. Anyone can click on it, you download it, and it can be viewed from there. So it's a great way to kind of transfer content within the context of a conversation. This is the piece we were talking about. Let me show you my working example. Maybe somebody comments on it, and then you even create a reply forum, or reply thread rather, where you kind of segment from, call, response, and each time maybe you add a new version of your working document. And that way it kind of feels like a live conversation where you're editing a document, you're progressing through a piece, and you're getting feedback every time.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So
okay. No, that's good. That's excellent.
Great. Great. I'm happy that's useful for you. And
yeah,
I think
you hit save and display. Is that, say, when I'm setting up, I'll call it the week or the page, is that an easier way to do it? I would have typed something in and put a photograph in, an image, and then rather than going back to the start, and so I can see what it looks like, just save and display, does that save me a step?
It does. So what save and display does, let me see if I can find a good example. So you're correct in that the difference is when you say save and display, it displays it within the activity itself, right? So if this is the activity.
Oh, okay. All right. So I've typed in all this text, and I want to see the photograph, how the photograph looks, or if it's the right size.
Exactly.
Then I would hit save and display.
Exactly. So
And
the difference between these two.
The photograph is too small or too big, so then I have to go back and change the photograph.
Exactly. Essentially, your thinking is, if you click Save and Return to Course, it's going to take you back to essentially this screen here, right? So this is the home screen for the entire course. If I click on Save and Display after this, it will take me back to this screen, which is the activity itself. So to give you an idea, if I click Save and Return to Course, it will save and it will come back to this screen, right?
Right.
But if I click on Save and Return, or Save and Display rather, it will take me to the actual weekly activity here, right? So it will take me into the activity that I've created itself. Does that make sense?
Okay, no, I guess I do have to go back to the page in the course, okay.
Yeah. Let's do it with the discussion forums. It's a little more applicable to what we've done right here. So I've added this information. Let's say I've added an extra piece, a piece of information such as hobby-wise. I look forward to hearing from you all, right? So I've added that piece, and I kind of say, what would that look like in the actual context of the activity? I wouldn't be able to see that if I return to the course, right? But if I click Save and Display, now it takes me back to the activity, and I can see, that's, okay, there it is, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
And then from there, you can always navigate back to the course by clicking on the course title here, and you always have that option as well to come back in here.
Okay.
Great.
That sounds good.
Great. So those are the main items. I'd like to kind of we have about 15 or 20 minutes, and there's a few things we can expand on, and I'd like to kind of address kind of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, if you're still curious in those, or maybe you have some other ideas of stuff we can expand into. What would interest you as far as
putting in the
expansion?
photographs, putting in the images and the text is the most frustrating, I would say.
No, I understand. And when you say putting in the images, within
it wasn't so bad when you could
context?
drag the image to change its size. But now going back and changing the numbers for the image I go back and forth 3 or 4 times.
Okay, so you mean like, for example, this image right here embedded within a text? Okay, so let's take a look at what that would look like. So this is another good instructional point. If you want to edit the content that's up here, we'll call this the preview window, right? We call this the overview, essentially. Of course, the weekly overview. If you want to edit stuff in the weekly overview, you click Turn Editing On, and you actually hit this little cog down here. To edit these down here, as you might have noticed, you click Edit Settings. This one is distinct, and that you click the cog.
Right. No, that I know,
And then you come in here. So what I'm hearing you saying is this is hard to resize. Before, you could essentially click on a little point at the side here, and you could drag it, and it would resize. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was great. Can't do that now.
And so the bad news is that Moodle keeps updating, and the good news is that Moodle keeps updating, right? So one thing is whenever they come out with a new update, some features do fall away, but the feedback usually catches up with them. And what I mean by that is Moodle is a crowdsourced, it is a exactly. It's what they call non-proprietary, meaning that people can access this, essentially the things that make this work, the code, and they can see how it can run better later on. What that means is that there's usually a pretty good feedback mechanism for if something is not optimal for users. It usually someone will say that, someone will go back in and try and help to fix that code. So what I mean by that is they changed how this whole window works, and when they changed that, they changed how this works, which I agree is a bit unfortunate. I would wager if we wait a few months that someone will find a way to bring that back, because people like you, Anne, will say, hey, that was something I really liked. So for the time being, it's not the best situation. I think it will be fixed. Do you know how to resize? You do know how to resize this, correct?
Yeah, I click on the photograph and it goes back to the sizing of it, and that way I can change it. But it's like guessing if I want it taller and narrower, or wider and shorter, or whatever it is.
It is a bit onerous, One way that I kind of help to make a good estimation for myself is I notice the dimensions on here. So this is 450 by 330, meaning the width is 450, right? If I know that I'm going to be using the same screen every time, and I am, I'm always using this one laptop, then I can estimate that this screen has about 2.5 to 3 of those pictures inside of it, the width of it, right? Yeah. So I can estimate the width is going to be about, I don't know, 1,400 pixels or so, right? Yeah. These are pixels. This is in the unit of pixels. Right. So if it's a total of 1,400 pixels, it's always going to be 1,400 pixels. That never changes as long as I use the same computer. Then the next time I can kind of build that into my memory of how big should this be? 1,000 pixels? Oh wait, that's actually probably about 2/3 of the screen. That's too big. Let's put it in. I wanted it about half of what I had before, so I'll put in 200. So it's not perfect, but if you can keep in mind that my screen is about 1,400 pixels wide, then you can just kind of do a little bit of math each time. 1,400 divided by 3, if I want it to be a third as wide. Yeah. I agree with you that it needs to be improved. Yeah, it does need to be improved. Yeah, because
I usually have, since the color course is primarily visual, I usually have 3 or 4 images, and I'm trying to feed type around them. I put it in a grid, and sometimes that helps. And sometimes the type looks a little weird because I can't get it close enough to the image or whatever. But this one's nice and tidy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's only got one photograph and it's not around the print.
No, it's very true. It's very true.
Okay.
Have you used Photoshop at all?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I haven't used it in ages. I don't have it on my computer.
Okay, that's okay.
I did get Photoshop Elements, but the one I have is so old it won't even work anymore. So.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe I should get an update. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just one thought I had is Photoshop, one way that you can, you talked about grids, right? In Photoshop, you can set up grids, and you can have them, you can essentially set up a grid that simulates the exact size of your screen. And anytime you want to format anything, you just essentially open Photoshop and you say, I want my picture to be 450. How would that look on my screen? And it essentially does all the math for you. And I'm not being super clear about this. I can show you that later one-on-one. But for anybody watching this later on, if you really want to be pixel perfect as far as fitting these images in, one way to do it is through the Photoshop pixel ruler. They have a pixel ruler that shows you how the pixels show up on the screen. So I can show you that later on if you'd like. That's a bit of a workaround that I found. Yeah. Okay. So this would work in Photoshop Elements as well. I have to check. I use Photoshop Creative Cloud 2014, so I can't speak to that software. I know generally speaking that is how Adobe works. They are very consistent with using latitudinal and longitudinal rulers that can go by inches and pixels and centimeters. Yeah. So usually that's pretty consistent across
I'll check in my older version. I've got an older version of Elements that I think still works on this computer.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I'll check that out.
Sure. I mean, the last option, probably maybe the most direct option, is if you've probably seen this before, if you resize these within this window right now, if I resize this and I click on auto resize, I only have to do the width. I don't have to worry about this one at all, right?
No, right, I do that, but then I click it off because sometimes I change the size of the
okay. Well, that's fair. If you want to maintain the aspect ratio, then that's how you do it, right?
That's how you do it. No, I usually start with that, get it down to reasonable, and then I say, okay, it's got to be wide or narrow. Or
exactly.
Whatever.
And the good news is, if I click Save now, I'll go back in here, and it'll show me essentially a preview of what I've done. If I don't like what I've done, I can always click Cancel, and it'll reset.
And you go back to.
I can also click Control Z, is what I just did to reset it here as well. So it's not perfect at all, but if I click on that, and then I can basically say, you know what, last time I did 350, I'm going to try 210 this time, and I can just click Save Image, and it does give me a decent preview. I don't like that one, I'll go back, Control Z, and I'll just try it a third time.
Control Z, God.
Yeah, Control Z. So it's not perfect, but it's probably about a 10-second turnaround for each of those little trials. It'd be great if it were automatic, but if you can spare 10 seconds, that is one workaround,
That's better. Okay.
Great.
I should come by sometime if you're doing a thing at the school. I'll put the stuff on my laptop and maybe we can go through a page setup.
That would be great. That'd be great. I know that next week we are doing, we're following up with, I'll show you what our on-site workshops next week. Let's go to the Need Help Center. So if you want to look at what other workshops are available, you go to Needs Help in the top here, and you go down to Instructor Resources. Down here, Workshops and Webinars. It'll give you a listing of all the workshops we have. So right now we're doing Setting Up Your Course. The next one is Interactive Features, and our on-campus one is going to be Monday, and it's going to be from 11 to 12 in the 342 Newberry Building, room 409.
That's so more for the online?
Yeah, and if you can't make that one, then we have one as well on Tuesday night. And then if you really can't make either of those, as long as the session runs, as there is interest for the session to run, I will record the online session like I'm doing right now, and then I post those up here for people to check on later on. So that's kind of your third option as well. Yeah.
Is the one on Monday more for the online learning courses?
Yeah, so the one on Monday, this is great. We're kind of in our last 10 minutes. This is a great time to kind of do our next steps. So if what I've talked about today is kind of interesting to you, that's great. You can always go back in here and check out these features we've talked about, importing, announcement, discussion forum, and you can actually click on these. These are hyperlinks, and will take you to the support documents. So everything I've talked about today essentially is going to be reviewed here, and there are also video screencasts that you can watch where I've basically summarized what I've said here. It's saved on YouTube, so you can check that anytime you want. And as far as workshops go, going forward, our two upcoming workshops anyway are going to be interactive features and then VoiceThread. So next week, essentially the week of the 25th and 26th, is going to be interactive features, and the week of February 1st and February 3rd is going to be the VoiceThread. We're going to have an on-campus element and online elements, and if it does run, if there are people who come and show interest, then I will record the online session as well. Okay. And then we can have that kind of within our repository up here. If none of those things... Go ahead.
Is there someone there on a regular basis during the week at school?
Yes, no, and also by appointment. You're always able to do so by appointment. So to answer your question, I'm there, and we have other people as well. As far as training goes, I'm probably your number one person to go to. You can reach me at joshua.weiss, W-E-I-S-S, at thebac.edu. And probably even easier is if you go to the Need Help Center.
Yeah.
The easier way to do it is if you see at the bottom here, it says, don't see what you're looking for, contact us here. You can always click this here, and this is the Moodle training email, right? So that goes out to all the Moodle training people. Me and the others as well. Click on this and then just set up an appointment, right? And say, hey, I think you've actually used this a few times. So it seems like you might be familiar with this mechanism. You say, hey, I have a question about setting up my syllabus. Is there a way we can set up an online appointment or an on-campus appointment? And then we'll go from there and set up a one-on-one meeting as well.
Okay. Okay. No, I've talked to the Moodle helpline, which is not at the BAC, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, so that's great. So that's one more thing we can highlight here. If you go to the Need Help Center, up here, is this what you're talking about? The online course support center?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very
so those
good.
guys are great. So those guys are actually available extended hours, right? So 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday for phone support, and they're available all weekend along as well through email support as well. So there is kind of it's sometimes hard to get somebody on the weekends at the Moodle training address, right? Because we're not in office, so to speak.
You're not there.
But these guys are responsive, right? Yeah, and the way you do that is you click on this. If it's the weekend and you need something, you can always try this. But I would say the first go-to is check this one. So click on Online Course Support Center, as you've seen. And over here, support options, they give you the email support option, the phone support, and then you can choose one of those two. Open a ticket is one of those two. The email support is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So if you have a problem Sunday night, that's probably your best bet to go there, especially if it's for just a technical question. If you're looking for more instructional design, if you're looking for more of an in-depth dive into a feature and all the tiny little things it can do, that's a good Moodle training question for this address, right? So if you want a deep dive, this is great for deep dive, right? Yeah. If you just say, you know what, I don't know where to click to make a discussion forum, I forgot. These are the guys to go to. This is the shallow dive, if you will, right? This is just my login isn't working.
What do I do?
They
bailed me out a couple
Moodle
of times.
keeps freezing, things like that. Yeah.
No, it's no. I think this is terrific, and let me check my calendar and see when I'm going to be over there next.
Sure.
I know I'm going to be over there Saturday and maybe Tuesday.
Awesome. We'll be Tuesday is probably better for us. Saturday can be kind of tough because people are out of town and that kind of thing. Yeah.
You're not there Saturday. Tuesdays would work all right.
Yeah, certainly. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, we can try and make an appointment, and that's very doable. Yep.
Okay, I'll check my calendar. This sounds great. No, I got a lot.
Awesome. I'm glad that was helpful, and there's a few pieces here to kind of advance your professional abilities with Moodle. Yeah.
I know, rather than tearing my hair. No, good. It works well, and the students more and more are logging into it. For a long time they didn't, but now they are, and I think that's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think the one of the ways to really get them to log in is we try and do more of these trainings at the beginning of the semester because it can be kind of daunting to start with Moodle. But I think once you're a few clicks in, as they say, kind of get your toes wet, then you realize, okay, there's a lot here, but perhaps I can just take a small bite, a few small bites at a time, and as the semesters go, I'll build up my knowledge, and that's probably one of the better ways to do it. Yeah.
All right, this is fantastic, and I'll get in touch later on and set up an appointment for during the week.
That would be great, Ann. I look forward to talking to you.
Okay, thanks so much. Take care.
Okay, Ann. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.